Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collective podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Hi, welcome to TFYLP, episode 470. We are live tonight. It is Monday, February 28th. I'm Lucas. I am joined tonight by Anna.
Good evening.
And Paul.
Hello.
And Phil.
Howdy.
Hey, so tonight the cast is going to give me some education on some of these Transformers construction sets. So we kind of wanted to discuss this because I guess, I don't know if it was a couple weeks ago or so, there was a rumor flying around that Transformers may potentially get involved with Lego. Is that right?
That's the rumor. It seems so ridiculous. If you've been a Transformers fan for more than, the last 5 years, you probably understand why this seems questionable to be even possible, because Hasbro made their own competing, what do you call it? Build pattern toys called Creo. They even ripped off the name, like Lego Creo.
Yeah.
They're
compatible.
They're compatible with Lego. It seemed like they really were saying, no, we're not going to be your friend, Lego. We're going to do it better than you. That's kind of the vibe I get from releasing something like that. So you're basically shutting the door on ever working with that other toy company. But
I don't know, though. I'm sure that whoever was in charge at the time and who the people in charge now are different. And, I'm sure a lot of these corporations, it's not, certain ones, I'm sure you probably have a feud and whatever, but a lot of them, they're just here to make money, so it's like if you throw enough money at it, it'll be fine.
Hasbro does have
time
a new
heals
CEO.
all. Yeah. Although I don't think that this was a decision they made in 3 days. The new CEO is very new.
Yeah. No, I understand, but it also wasn't the former CEO sort of, or did he retire and then pass away, or was his retirement or stepping down from Hasbro foretold?
Oh, he stepped down because he was dying.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
He knew it.
It all happened really fast, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was good. Brian Goldner was great. He did a lot of good things for the company. Not saying the new guy isn't bad, but or is bad. Never mind.
Well, and I wonder too, how much of this is at the brand level versus the upper CEO level as well. I don't know. I don't know. Rick probably would have a better idea of some of those decisions. At least in the past. As far as partnering with other brands, but it definitely seems like with some of these crossover figures that they've been doing, it seems like that they're trying to really work with other media companies or other brands and things in order to produce some of this stuff, which I completely welcome. I think it's great if they can kind of work with some of these other companies and deliver what the fans want and, make some money at the same time.
That's interesting to put it with the crossovers, because maybe that's why it would happen. But this just seems like such a different thing than crossing over a franchise with Transformers. This is the two potentially biggest toy companies in the world
Right.
cooperating.
Yeah, the toy company commissioning a toy company to make a toy, which feels odd in a lot of ways. But at the same time, you have to think of the number of franchises that have worked with Lego at this point.
Yeah.
Well, but they're not. This is the other. This comes up so often with Transformers, is that it's not a fiction first brand.
Right, it's a choice first.
Whereas all those other, when I think of like Harry Potter and Star Wars and all those things, those are fiction. They are applying the fiction to their toy, and this is a little different.
It's like almost everything except for Voltron. Voltron was the one kind of exception to that, is that was very much a toy cartoon. And it did get a single release, but I think that's one of the things we need to remember. Even if there is a Lego Transformer, a lot of people online are talking about, like, this is the beginning of the Lego Transformers line. And I don't believe that has to be the case, right? It's not like they've made a bunch of different combining robots from various anime. It's not like they made a bunch of Voltron products. They made one Voltron thing that was, a fan submission for their contest, and they remodeled it and made the release like they always do. This Transformers thing could be the same thing again. It could just be like, one Optimus Prime they managed to build. They got the license for one product, and then we never see another Lego Transformer.
Yeah, well, I mean,
one would think if this.
Oh, sorry, go on.
One would think if this does well, there's plenty more they can do. So this doesn't have to be one and done. Voltron, it's kind of hard to do more than the Lions. I know there are other Voltrons, but they're not nearly as famous as Lion Force there. So I don't know. I would maybe chalk this up with some similarity to the Mario Lego, because Mario is a toy first, it's a video game first, and then it's all the other fiction related to it. But that is something that Lego and Nintendo, I don't think, are competing that directly with each other, whereas Hasbro and Lego are.
Kind of. Like, they could stop, right? Like, Hasbro could stop trying to put out building block lines.
They haven't done so in a while.
Yeah.
And a lot of the big fictions that Hasbro makes toys for, like Marvel, are already licensed by Lego for their building block.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Stop.
Disney.
Well,
basically, so many
Disney
lines
and Mattel still
are both made by Hasbro and Lego.
I feel like that Hasbro has really expanded their licensing of Transformers. Like, they essentially have this rule of no transforming, figures, like that they're not licensing that, but like really anything else. And I mean, you've really seen that with just a fair amount of things that they've put licenses on. And, we'll probably talk about a little of that in more detail later tonight. But, like Flame Toys, for example, the 3A figures, or another one. I'm trying to think of like some of the recent
Super 7.
Super 7.
Because both Flame Toys and Super 7 both kind of started out very niche, because Flame Toys was the super expensive statues that Hasbro doesn't do. And Super 7 was the very, their plain little reaction figures that Hasbro doesn't do. But then over time, Flame Toys has started making more compatible toys that are more the size Hasbro makes. And now Super 7's making their Ultimates for Transformers, which are also more compatible. So it's kind of evolved.
Yeah, the Hasbro Red Series, Transformers Red Series, and the Super 7 Ultimate, granted the price points are different, but those are pretty comparable in scale and pretty darn similar toys.
They fill the same niche. One's better than the other.
And I think, too, you even see in like the toy aisle where I can't remember what company it is that makes those statues that are at Target. Do you know what I'm talking about? The $50 ones?
Yeah, those awful things, right? I forget what they're called, but they're at GameStop, too.
Yeah. Those, and then whatever. What are those other little things that you bought, Paul? Like you collected them all from Target. But then there's
the ones that showed up at the dollar stores.
Whatever those things are.
Yeah,
and the Funko Pops. Like, I mean, so there's a fair amount of of other Transformers licensed figures. So
Yeah, it happens a lot these days.
Maybe it's the point we're trying to make, like it's normal now for competing toy companies to work together. Is that sort of where we're going?
I think kind of, just because we're trying to say, like, is it possible this is really going to happen? You know,
because
like,
we don't know.
Should people get their hopes up? And the answer is always no. You know, don't bother.
Well, that's the thing.
Hope.
This made some splashes, or a splash, in Transformer land for like a good 20, 48 hours, something like that. And then one of our brethren here at the podcast told us it was debunked, and then that was redacted. So it is still potentially going to happen. I mean, like, lots of non-Transformers news sources have posted this rumor. Like, there's a whole Lego-verse out there, you know, of people that are just as insane.
I heard about it first.
Yeah, so like that kind of gives it more credence.
Lego person. And he was like, Anna, look, Lego Optimus. I was like, what the heck?
I happen to know someone that works at Lego, and I reached out to them and I was like, cut the shit and tell me, lose your job and tell me if this is real. And they're like, not a chance, bro. And I was like, okay, yeah. So maybe it is real. I don't know.
They didn't say no, right?
They didn't say no. They didn't say anything.
So it started, like you guys said, on the Lego side of things with the rumor. Promo Bricks, I believe, is the website that first had it. I'm not familiar with Promo Bricks, but for people I know who know Lego, say that website is pretty darn legitimate in terms of getting their rumors correct. So this was posted by them February 12th. So we're talking, over 2 weeks ago. Basically what it sounds like is going to be, it sounds like a movie type Transformer, kind of Dark of the Moon with the Jetfire combination kind of deal happening. Not Dark of the Moon, Revenge of the Fallen with the Jetfire jetpack kind of combination. It's going to have about 1,500 parts. May of this year is the expected release date, which is pretty darn close. And that is something that Lego does have a habit of doing, of revealing stuff really quickly before the actual release date hits. And then you're able to grab it from Amazon and the Lego store. I don't know how quickly those things get into Target shelves, but or Walmart shelves, but they get their sets out there pretty fast after reveal.
Yeah, they hype differently than we do.
Yeah.
They hype at a very fast cycle.
Yep. And then, this is supposed to be somewhere around $160, $170 price point, what we're talking about here. But I think one of the other things about this that's different from if this is a quote unquote crossover is that this is not something I imagine that's been designed by the Hasbro team. I have to imagine that Lego's designed this and Hasbro's just given their stamp.
That's what I would expect. I'm expecting something more people are posting the pictures of everybody's like kit bashed Optimuses that people have made over the years, where they made their own Lego Optimuses that are like very detailed and very like toy looking and transform in 8,000 steps and all that stuff. I'm expecting it to be like Lego Voltron. I'm expecting something very Lego looking, very blocky, but very appealing, right? Like Lego Voltron is in one of my like most premier spaces in my house where everyone can see it, right? It's in the living room on a top shelf, and I love that thing. But it's very, very Lego looking. Like it does not, you're not going to look at it and be like, oh, is that like the new Masterpiece Voltron? No, you're going to be like, that's a Lego thing. It's a big brick monster that happens to split apart into five cats. And I think that if there is a Lego Optimus, I think it's going to be a similar vein where it looks Lego but is Optimus. That's what I expect, but who knows?
Yeah, that is interesting too, is that this is supposed to transform. I'd say the last 3 or 4 years I've been buying a decent amount of Lego with my son. He's into the Ninjago line. He did played with Nexo Knights for a little bit. He's bought some Monkey Kid sets. And none of those really transform. I mean, you had the Voltron combining one that was a really high-end toy. You've now got a Monkey Kid and Ninjago set that have some combining features, but Lego's done a lot of kind of bigger robot toys, and they've all been, non-transforming kind of things. They did have a smaller Ninjago mech that turned into a jet, but that was, you had to disassemble it and You had to disassemble and reassemble it. So it was not a transformer from what we are used to, where you can just fold everything. But supposedly this Lego Optimus Prime will be transformable.
Yeah, traditionally transformable. Like how you don't have to take Voltron apart at all. You just use the connection ports and that's it.
See, and I think that would be interesting, because again, I think Hasbro's kind of set that line of, no transforming licensed toys. So if it is, an actual transforming or, even close to that, I think that's the thing would be more interesting to me.
I guess, yeah. I mean, Lego could be the exception. I guess technically the RoboSen Optimus was them licensing RoboSen and not the other way around, right? Because that's a transforming toy.
Yeah, true.
Anywho, I think it's possible. I think it's not like super likely or unlikely that this is happening. I think it's definitely a possibility that it's real. And if we get it, it could be any number of things. But I just kind of wanted, I thought it would be fun to talk about this because we could talk about kind of what people really want from a buildable Transformers toy and what we've got it in the past, because we've got it a bunch. And they've been a combination of not so great.
Before we dive down that well, I just had the thought,
it's fun.
We probably would have seen it this past weekend if Toy Fair had happened. I would have been. I don't know how much of a presence Lego has at Toy Fair, but I'd be kind of surprised if something that seems like would be this sort of a premier toy wouldn't get a Toy Fair spotlight.
It's a great question. I don't know where Lego shows their stuff off at.
A lot of what I've seen is all of a sudden, they release it to websites and then their own website, and they've got folks that they work with, a lot of YouTube reviewers and stuff that will get the Lego sets early. Of course, a lot of dudes in Europe, that's where I've seen some of the newer Lego stuff has been, through those kinds of the outlets. I don't know if I've seen anything where it's pictures of in-hand things from a convention floor, like you see with Transformers and other Hasbro releases from Toy Fair especially. But that being said, a lot of the time frame that I've been playing with Legos with my son and paying more attention to Legos with my son has been during COVID. So that at least half the time I've been playing with Legos with my son has been during COVID, in which case, yeah, you're not going to see anything on a convention show floor.
And same here. Our household has become a Lego household since the pandemic. We didn't really mess with it before, and then my husband started doing some of the high-end sets.
I mean, I do think overall, obviously the set that we're talking about is more of a collector set, not a set for, younger kids. But I do feel like that, those Lego construction sets, kind of fill a gap that Hasbro has, I feel like, for Transformers. I really feel like that, I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 year old range, that Lego is really kind of the bread and butter for that age range. That Hasbro, I feel like has had a hard time recently of trying to fill that. They have the rescue bots and some of the sets for the younger kids, and I don't know how well some of the toys for Cyberverse have really went over with with kids. my kids haven't necessarily been that interested in it, but I don't know. I don't know if that is representative of all the 6 to 9 year olds. But Phil, I don't know for you, for your kid, like, has he been interested in Transformers himself?
I mean, he's a mini me, so yeah. I mean, he sees the new stuff that I get, and he'll play around with it. I don't know if, but he'll play with any Transformer stuff I get home. So, like, recently I bought from Surge Animated Ultra Magnus, and so he was playing with that all weekend. So it's it doesn't have to be the newest thing, but yeah, he's still interested in Transformers. But again, he plays with almost any toy I put in front of him. Yeah, Catherine just said that each of our kids have a lot more access than Cyberverse toys than the average kid does, and it's like, that is absolutely true.
Yeah, that is true. All of our kids have access to a lot more Transformers than the average person. That's for sure.
Yeah. You ever have your friends' kids come over and they're just like, like they're just not used to this, and they're like, oh my God.
The friends' kids don't go down to the Transformers room, Paul.
Well, it can change their lives, Lucas.
When you're going to your friend's house to buy Transformers, your kid gets to go down to the Transformers room. And then Paul has to explain to your friend's kid, in this case, me being the friend, Paul has to explain to my son, like, no, you can't touch that. No, you can't touch that one either. No, you can't look at that one either.
I remember being so nervous.
The average price of Paul's piece that he has on display is way higher than mine.
Yeah, I mean, these are really valuable.
Again, average. That's at the low end of the spectrum.
See, that's what you have to do when you have the kids over. Just throw that kind of stuff at them, so then that way they won't
just redo your shelves.
Pay attention to the
cheap stuff.
AFA graded Starscream.
Normal basement.
Although I don't know if you have your like mini bot collection out, Paul, you might get in trouble there, right?
Might, yeah. Things that seem cheap are not.
But Transformers has not the lengthiest, but probably a longer history of building sets than most people realize.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing not a brick building set, but the Flame Toys model kits are pretty popular and continue to come out. And then we have seen a good amount of brick building sets from Transformers. So where do we want to start with that?
With the first one.
All right.
Diablock Convoy, baby, from Japan.
Do you have Diablock Convoy with you? I've always wanted to see it.
I certainly wish I did. It's packed away somewhere, but it is very underrated. It is awesome, and it is it's the only, as far as I know, well, do the build to, I don't think the build to rule things transform. It's the only like build it and transform it block thing that I know of. And no one bought it.
Sets did.
Oh, you had to build those.
You had to build it, but then they would transform without taking apart.
No, yes. They did not. You had to take that shit apart. That's why everyone hated them.
I'm going to mute myself while I dig around.
There's those little crappy Creon ones that sort of do it, but what?
Yeah.
But the Diablock, those don't count. So Diablock Convoy, no one bought it back in the day because it looked like it was maybe this big, and it wasn't super impressive. But if you were crazy enough to buy it and pay around $80-$90 for it, and you got to remember, this is like this is like 2000, before 2010. This is like around the time the first movie came out, probably. So, but it was the size of MPO-1. It was huge. It was like 12 inches tall. And a lot of people didn't like it because it didn't have a real face. It had like a single brick eye face. I just think it's so cool. And it has a lot of good presence. And it actually transforms. Like, it transforms like Optimus Prime does. And it's very similar to how the Creo sets have those like friction joint ball things. Like, it has some of those, but this is a purely Japanese creation, the Diablock thing. And the Xiaomi toys also follow suit with this concept of the rubber ball on one end, and there's like a locking mechanism that goes on it that just kind of holds friction for a while. So if you ever get a chance to check out Diablock Convoy, look it up. It is it's just a very quirky one-off piece. And that's
I always thought it looked neat. Honestly,
very
like, being somebody who likes building block toys, I do actually enjoy the building figures. I always thought it looked really cool, but importing was a little beyond my like understanding of the planet at that point.
It looks like on Toy Wiz they have it under Constructabots for some reason for like $75. So I mean, like, it's somehow cheaper now than it was back in the day. So I'd say go for it.
Because when did it come out again? It was
early.
It was a while back.
So did Built to Rule come before it then, it sounds like?
No. I thought, wait, did it? I can't.
Because Built to Rule was Armada era.
Actually, you're right. Maybe it did.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm actually not sure. I'm trying to find out, but
it's definitely the first.
There's a way to look that up.
It's definitely the first Japanese combiner thing, and it blows Built to Rule out of the water.
It looks like 2007, so it would have been after. So Built to Rule was a practice run for Diablock Convoy.
I don't think they're related.
Totally different in terms of how they're built. Diablock looks more like a Lego set that looks like Optimus Prime. Built to Rule looks like you're building a set of Lego panels that are praying for their death.
Yeah, okay, so let's just say real fast here. You take Diablock Convoy, you stand him next to like MP01 or MP10, since he's kind of between the two, and he looks like a, less great version of them because he's made of building blocks. Armada era toys were so bad that Built to Rule is actually just the slightly worse version of those.
Built to Rule is far worse than Armada toys. No, I mean, Armada toys I don't like, but Built to Rule is so much worse.
I'm kidding. Armada wasn't actually that bad in the first place, but...
Sideswipe.
There were some problems. There were a lot of highlights, too, that were actually fun toys. So I shouldn't be so mean to Armada. I know some people love it. However, the Build to Roll stuff was bizarre.
It was not good.
It was not good. They did transform, though, for what it's worth, kind of.
I'm just going to go ahead and believe you, I guess.
I don't remember if they
didn't they? I didn't think you had to rebuild them. I
really wish that we had Nick and Peter and Rick on here to give their thoughts on how much they actually hated having to collect those.
Well, there's some really rare Built to Rule toys.
Oh, I'm sure.
There are.
I'm sure.
These do not transform. There is absolutely no way on God's green earth that this Armada Starscream transforms into something that stands
Apparently
out.
Some of them do, is what Zeldron said. And some of them don't. I don't remember. I didn't actually own. I owned some Build to Roll G.I. Joe, but I never owned any Build to Roll Transformers.
Why do you own Build to Roll G.I. Joe?
I thought they were cool. And they showed up at Big Lots. That's the two combinations. They showed up super cheap at Big Lots, and I thought they were pretty neat. But the Transformers stuff I never thought looked good. It always looked pretty bad.
No, it didn't even look like a ripoff of Legos. It looked like a ripoff of Mega Bloks, which was still trying to find its footing at the time for complex Lego sets. For complex building sets, I should say. It just, they did not look like good toys or enjoyable toys.
It's interesting how the more custom pieces you have for like any of these toys, the worse the final figure looks than having like everything built out of similar stuff.
Are you talking about like the heads that looked more like the?
I'm talking about
heads.
I'm talking about everything, man. Like there's like the Starscream has 2 giant pieces for his missile launchers.
Oh yeah. I know what you're saying.
And the
Yes.
wings. So it's like there's nothing to build really. It's just like it's really these are bad. Like there's no shared parts between the other figures, so they're each very much their own creation.
Yeah.
Wow, the Energon Optimus Prime is worse than the real toy. Wow.
And again, for those not familiar, like go look them up because they're these like they're not like Lego sets where you're building them more like with bricks stacking on top of each other. There's a lot of panels, a lot of large panel pieces. And so it's like imagine if you had a Lego set that looked all just like Unicron's backpack and then a more cartoon accurate head on it. Because they gave them, like Paul said, like these customized, like not brick parts to look more cartoon accurate. And it just felt so disjointed from the rest of the toy. I don't recommend buying them. I don't care how rare they are. Good luck trying to find someone who would buy it off you. But they're an interesting thing to spend 2 minutes looking up and just like, ugh.
Well, they canceled Built to Rule pretty quick, but a few Energon toys got out.
Okay.
In like select markets, and those are the ones that are worth some money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like Energon, Starscream, Energon Optimus, because they just, doesn't matter how good they are, it just matters how few there are. And there's not many. When it comes to collecting stuff that is not, there's no play value. It's just a matter of what it represents and what it is.
Yeah, when we started talking about this, I honestly, I have a lot of regret because I didn't keep my Build to Rule G.I. Joe because I actually thought that was a fun concept because they mostly made the 3.75-inch figures to go with it, and they actually had block parts on them, like on their lower arms, where you could build things off of it. So it was kind of a fun idea, like building a Lego super arm on your G.I. Joe guy. It's kind of neat. And their vehicles didn't have to transform, so it wasn't torture that you had to somehow make them transform look terrible. So I thought that was pretty fun. But now that we're talking about this, I really wish I owned one Built to Roll Transformer just to have on my shelf to be like, that happened. That was an event.
I'm sure that you can. I'm sure you can go to
I'm
eBay
sure I can find one.
Well, the Built to Rule
looking
his
at the
tank
Built
is
to Rule.
$180 right now.
And
I can't imagine the G.I. Joe
Joe
was cheap because it was actually okay.
Yeah, I agree, Anna. The Built to Rule G.I. Joe was way better than the Built to Rule Transformer stuff was. That's not awful. It's not great, but it's not awful. The Raging Typhoon does look kind of fun.
It's like a level of sacrifice you're willing to make to go from your totally competent G.I. Joe vehicle to a brick version of it. Like, it's like, you're like, okay, that's fine. It's kind of like the Diablock Convoy. It's like, I'm losing some of that detail, but I'm getting a cool buildable brick version that's personalized.
And I think, to Paul's point, the custom parts and the Transformers that made it look bad actually make the G.I. Joe ones look kind of cool.
Right, because they don't have to do 2 modes. They can just do 1 mode, stick it on there.
Yeah.
And it looks good.
Yeah. No, that's I can see why you like them. Those are not the circus ugly level that the Transformers were.
I mean, imagine you're on this team, like, we're gonna make this new toy line, Built to Rule. They're like, awesome, we're gonna make all these vehicles, and they're like, by the way, you're gonna do the Transformers too. And you're like, uh-oh. Like, we really made this for G.I. Joe. We don't care.
Yeah. If it works for
Really
this, it can work for the other.
There's your crossover, though, right? You just get the figures from the G.I. Joe Build to Roll, and you put them with the Transformers Build to Roll, and you cry because they look terrible. You call it a crossover. Then you don't feel bad about that $90 Megatron his tank anymore.
So
So
the
after Built to
Creo
Rule,
line. Oh, I was
well, we
gonna
had
say.
one in between Creo.
Oh, what was that?
Constructs.
Construct bots came after Creo,
Did they come out? Oh, I'm sorry. You're
right? I think I'm
Or were they at
right.
the same time, or were they around the same time?
I think they were during. I think they were during the second coming of Creo.
I think you're right, because if you look at the Transformers Construct bots, you have Age of Extinction toys, and you had Age of Extinction Creo toys. So I think there was overlap there.
Yeah, 'cause Creo happened before Age of Extinction, but it did get Age of Extinction toys.
Yeah, that was like the last hurrah was the Age of Extinction toys. Okay.
Yeah, that were incrementally better, but
yeah, and they
still
both
problematic.
Both toy lines had some Transformers Prime stuff in them.
Yes, and that felt like real late Creo. Because like the first set of Creo was initially the first movie characters. It was Jazz and Bumblebee and Optimus, Megatron, Starscream.
Well, that was like, to Lucas's point, we had sort of two waves of Creo. You had the Creo toys that were sort of the next iteration of Built to Rule, where you had a 6-inch tall brick robot that you would then disassemble and reform into a car. And they looked better than Built to Rule. I never liked them. I never picked any of them up. They would come with minifigures that would be like a driver, like a race car driver, Lego looking guy. But it was never like a Lego minifigure. There were differences. There was more ball joints going on.
For some reason, the people they made for Creo were hideous, because they made Creons of Transformers characters that were fun. They were cute. They were nice little figures. But when they made humans, they just made them so atrociously ugly. I don't get it. I don't know why humans had to be so ugly looking.
You had to make something significantly different enough from a Lego minifigure so you didn't get yourself taken in court.
That's true. That's true. So they can't
all
look
the
very
cuteness
great.
you got from a Lego minifigure, you weren't getting from a Creon, especially a human Creon.
So,
But I mean, I will say I feel like the Creo line, it seemed like was at least moderately successful, because I mean it ran for a number of years, right? I think it was like around 2011, 2012, all the way to 2015, right?
I think a lot of that was just with the micro changers, the crayons that had alt modes, but yeah, it stuck around. I have a lot of Creo. Like that was something I really got into for a minute, because I really wanted there to be buildable Transformers. I have not taken very good care of my Creo, because I always tell myself one of these days I'm going to put it back together and fix it up. So here's Creo Jazz. He has no arms and one leg. He looks very nice, right? He's pretty. But that's the thing with these, people criticize big Lego fans for being so loyal to the quality of Lego, but there's a big difference. Like, you put your Lego stuff like reasonably well packed when you're moving, it stays together for the most part. You try to do that with Creo, you end up with Bag of Jazz right here. And that's what you have. I have a Bag of Jazz, I have a bag of Sideswipe, because they had the big Sideswipe too. He was huge. I don't know why they made Sideswipe so massive. And he's a bag. Oh, I have a bag of Bumblebee too, Bumble Bag. But alternatively,
this is the greatest bag of whatever.
Bag of Jazz.
But if you built them in their vehicle mode, which you had to completely disassemble, right? Like the build rule, you had to move some parts around. It was like more around like moving the big units. With a Creo, you just had to get your part ripper and take them entirely apart, rebuild from scratch. Then you get vehicles. And the vehicles are legitimately okay. This is my Sentinel Prime, and he's been a fire truck for like 15 years or whatever, I swear. It's at least 10 at this point, I think.
At least he stayed together.
Yeah, he stayed together just fine. There's a couple of parts laying in the Bag of Jazz I need to put back on him. But, he's more or less ready to go back on the shelf as a fire truck. Will I ever take him apart to put him in robot mode again? No. I remember it took for freaking ever to disassemble the robot to build the fire truck.
Well, maybe this is the reason why it's so easy to take apart. So then that way,
There
you're
you
like,
go.
well, I can pick which mode do I want to do today when he fell apart, you know?
It's less painful than taking apart Lego. That's true, because they're worse.
I think one of the things with the Creo, the bigger figures, what they had is you would have these parts of the body, like the torso, that would sort of build like a regular Lego piece would. But then the connector would be a ball joint. And that's where you would have easy for it to pop off, easy for it to come apart. I mean, but it would give you articulation. And so I think they definitely had better silhouettes and better proportions than what we were getting from Built to Rule, but they still were kind of wonky with that ball joint sort of thing going on. They were taking a little bit of what Lego had been doing with Bionicle, which was a lot more ball joint focused sort of Lego action figures, and kind of slap that together with some traditional style Legos to give you this robot that couldn't really transform, but had the two modes.
Yeah, they look pretty okay. Like, the robots kind of had their own, like, among Lego robots of the day, they kind of had their own charm. They had very good heads, though. Like, I remember people were taking these heads from the Creo sets and putting them on their mainline figures, because they were very good head sculpts. And we weren't getting great head sculpts back then. So they were like, and we were getting the movie head sculpts. So they'd be like, ooh, a G1 style Jazz. Gonna put that on my movie Jazz.
Yeah. They would. I remember that. That was a whole thing for a while.
It was a whole thing. People were literally buying the sets from people just to take the heads out. So you would go on eBay and you'd find like Creo sets, missing head.
Sort of like Space Jam 2, LeBron James was.
Yeah, like the Creo was almost like the beginning of an evergreen movement in Transformers. It wasn't exactly a movie. It wasn't exactly G1, but it was something in between. It was supposed to be like the quintessential Optimus Prime, even though his body looked like the movie, but it was very much a G1 head. They would mix stuff up. God, I really forgot about that. What?
Like Sideswipe was red.
Silver.
He was hanging out with all the other movie guys, but it was red Sideswipe for some reason with red Sideswipe head.
But then you had Sentinel Prime, who is clearly a film creation. It was.
But he didn't have a ton of representation in G1 or other media. I mean, the animated Sentinel Prime was
a retcon.
Not exactly. Yeah.
Oh, animated the show. Never mind.
Yeah. The Sentinel Prime we got in the movie was a new character. Like, he wasn't really attached to other usages of the name. Mm-hmm. He was just Nimoy Prime. He was fine. But I wanted a toy of Nimoy Prime, and this is my only toy of Nimoy Prime. It's my freaking fire truck that can never be a man again because it's too much trouble. That was the bummer with that line. Like, it was just too much trouble to transform. Like, that's, even with this Jazz, which I think is like, a 60-part figure, it's still a pain in the butt to take this all the way apart, then find my instructions wherever those are from a million years ago.
Well, I think they figured that out, that all that shit sucked, and that
absolutely.
It was all about the Creons in the end.
Yeah,
and that's
what
that's why
suck was these.
Yeah, then we got San Diego Comic-Con for like 2 years in a row. We got these like big sets of just the Creons, of really awesome Creons. And
because you would get the Creons with the big guys, and like the heads that came with the big sets, the Creons were like that was the fun part. Who cared about this 60-part meh toy? Like, give me that Creon, give me that nice G1 Jazz head sculpt.
I remember at the time one of the Megatrons they released came with a G1 Megatron Creo, and he was like the only way to get him at that time. So I got the set because I wanted to build it, and I took the Megatron out and I sold him for like 80% of the value of the set on eBay. And then the set is still unbuilt in my closet.
There is one set I will say is worth it's mustard, and that is that the final Creo set, which was the Grimlock one, the Dinosaur Grimlock. I just was doing a search, and it came across. I was like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
Like that one there?
No, the one that like turned into a big. It was like a tall G1 masterpiece size Dinosaur Grimlock, and it came with a bunch of Creons as well.
I gotta look that up. I don't think I remember that.
It was like a Toys R Us exclusive or something. It was like one of the last things I bought at Toys R Us.
They even did weird stuff, like they did the Cliff Jumper set where he had his little four-wheeler and some generic Viacons to fight. I had that set, and it was just silly. But then you got Creo Viacons, you got little generic Decepticon characters, and these were monsters in many D&D games for many years afterwards. We use Lego in our D&D games.
Oh yeah.
Anywho.
Oh, I just found that. That is a good set. Holy cow.
I don't think Creo was it wasn't a complete failure. Obviously the Creons are great. They're a fun little thing. And the sets could be fun. They just weren't fun to put back together after the first time. I think that was pretty universal, sadly.
The Devastator set was also pretty good. I actually put that together once.
The Creo, which Devastator set?
The big one. It was
okay.
It was like during Revenge of the Fallen when it came out. So it was like a bastardization of G1 Devastator, and he was multicolored and was sort of like the Revenge of the Fallen one. But it's actually not such a bad combined together thing. Yeah, so yeah, Anna, there's definitely like every toy line, there's good with the bad. There's gems amidst dust.
And they went on for years with the micro changers, which I'm holding up my little Scorponok here. And I mean, there are so many Creo micro changers, right? They ended up with tons of them produced over the years because they were just in those little $3 blind packs that you can sell at any store. And those are actually pretty cool. Like they are fun representations of a lot of really obscure characters. There's characters that don't get many toys that showed up in microchangers. Now their transformations were very air quotes transformations. They were like funny little things they could do. Like bend over and, oh, I'm a scorpion now. Well, that's cute. Stand back up, please. But they were still fun, and they weren't painful to take apart because, they're tiny little 10-part figures where it's okay to take these apart. I don't want to take apart my 400-piece Sentinel Prime and rebuild him. That is not a fun Friday night for me.
Yeah, the micro changers were, no pun intended, a game changer for the Creo figure line, because I had next to no interest in the Creo line until the micro changers started coming out, and then I was gobbling those suckers up left and right, and still see them at like Walgreens here and there. You'll see like a Walgreens that might have like one of the later waves that you can still find. Literally just like 2 weeks ago, I sold nearly all of my Creo stuff to Nick. I had a lot of Creo G.I. Joe. I had a lot of Creo Transformers, and I moved about 5.5 years ago. And in that time, they hadn't left my crawl space. So it was just like, all right, let me go and dig through these and sort them out. And they're not worth a ton. Some have a few dollars value to them, but for the most part, they're not worth a lot. But I kept a few. I kept Rodimus for myself here. He just, I don't know. I enjoy Rodimus. I'm not a huge character collector, but Rodimus is one that I tend to have more versions of than other toys. And then my son bought from me my Pironicon Combiner, and that was something else that they did with the micro changes. You got combiners. They were not as in pain looking as some of the other building toys, but these were really interesting that you would get 4 minifigures that could have the vehicle modes, like Anna said, the alt modes that were, sort of just like bend over and attach something on the back to make it look like a tail.
The whole wheels.
They would hold the wheels with their hands to make it look like a car. And then you would disassemble it again and like significantly disassemble these, because you would take the arms off of some of these guys, and you would make a combiner out of this. So you would always end up, no matter what mode you had with combiner, you always had extra parts, because you would either have the combiner parts that you wouldn't use when they were in their individual mode, or here in the combiner mode, as you can see, like there's heads missing for the guys that are the feet, and this one, doesn't even have he's kind of unique in that he doesn't have the full body of a Creo guy for an arm. You can see they would use the legs as the fingers for the Creo combiners. And so, I don't know. My son said he wanted Pironicon. I'm like, well, you got to buy them from me, because I'm not just going to give them to you just because you found it on my basement floor. So he paid eBay price for me for it, because I'm trying to teach him the, value of money.
Wow.
And yeah.
Wow, Dad's real cool.
I'm not.
Wait, so you're
Cool.
saying Phil's scalping to his son, huh?
I mean, this. I think this was. I think I profited maybe $6 from the original purchase price.
Off of your son, which you
Off my
got.
son.
They weren't expensive.
Did
the
you make him
combiners
pay
were not
shipping,
expensive.
Phil? Or?
No. I knocked off what I would have charged someone for shipping and for the eBay fees, so he didn't pay full eBay price.
That's
but,
good.
Oh,
So
that's-
yeah,
No,
a
it's
bit of a
just-
deal.
I was trying to teach my son that, like, hey, just because you see something and want it doesn't mean you can just get it.
You were trying to
this thing
teach
has
your
a
son.
cost to it.
You're trying to teach your son Dad's gonna screw you no matter what.
So mean.
Yeah.
You guys are mean, not Phil. Phil wasn't mean. Phil was trying to teach a lesson.
Yes.
I
don't think he learned that lesson, because maybe a week or so after he bought it from me and thought it was the coolest thing ever, it hadn't left his the top of his dresser in his bedroom. It had just been sitting there collecting dust for the last 3 or 4 weeks. But it was fun to dig around through those bins.
Sounds like he's learning to me. He's learning what it's like to be a
So
a
now
toy
he's gonna
collector.
buy it
Forgot
back,
about
but give him a cutthroat price there on. Like, yeah, I'll buy it back for half price.
Yes, you can get it back.
Oh, like he did not want to let me use it for tonight for the show. Like, can I borrow this for tonight? He's like, no. And he's like, what do I get? I'm like, what do I get if I let you borrow this? And I'm like,
Wow.
you play with my toys all the dang time.
It would have been great if he said, "How about $6?"
A rental
Rented it
fee.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Like,
at
what's
first
your
when he
style?
said no, I'm just like, fine, I don't want it. Leave it there. Leave it alone. He's like, well, no, you can have it. I'm like, no, I don't want it now. So I played hardball back, and he was like, no, take it for your show. So yes, I'm a jerk to my son.
But
Yeah.
as you mentioned, this is Baggastator. This is all the parts of Devastator that have been in a bag for years, because my Devastator's on the shelf over there. Fully assembled, and there's so many heads and arms and guns and extra stuff.
Devastator was one of my favorites of the combiner sets. I liked him. He worked well because he had the uniform green color.
Yeah.
So he worked better than some of the other combiners did. I think Pironicon works pretty well too, again, because he's got sort of a little bit of uniformity there with the teal and the pink coming in throughout with the flares of the purple. But some of them were just bad. Yeah, I think I got them all except Bruticus, because they did all the main G1 combiners, like all of the Scramble City combiners got a Creo combiner.
And then they started making them up. They started adding them after.
Yes, they started making these random Age of Extinction dinosaur combiners that were all right. No, I skipped all those, but I almost bought one because I think it had Grimlock in the set. I think it had the Dinobots name, but they didn't look anything like the Dinobots in terms of the aesthetic. It wasn't silver and gold and red. It was, I don't remember what color it was.
Yeah, the combiners were fine. They were a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But Creo overall was a fun romp. I wish they would have done the big toys a little better, but that's okay.
But then we got like small dudes, like small versions of big toys. We got a Trypticon mini, a Creo micro changer of Trypticon. So yeah, you wouldn't think that you'd get that, but we did. Yeah, Scorponok. There you go. He was one of the
tiniest Scorponok in my collection. I have a lot of Scorponoks, but this is a little one.
That was a good Scorponok. The Scorponok was one of the ones that I always had kind of issues with, because you can see on Rodimus here, you got a nice tampo on the chest. And yet, for some of them, they would have like a thing that would go over the chest to make like a backpack that would then, see exactly on Scorponok there, but then you would cover up with the kind of cool tampo. And it's like, do you want
because he had tampo on his chest.
Yeah.
He has details. It just hasn't been uncovered in years.
No. So it's like, what do you want? Do you want the cool tampo, or do you want the built backpack sort of deal thing? So it was a little bit of a tough choice for some of the micro changers.
So they were fun. They were enjoyable. Don't do it again though, because I don't want another transforming buildable toy line. That was a miss.
But that's when we started to get like these at the very tail end of Creo, where we got these half big Creo guys mixed with the Creon, somewhat more Creon combiner scale, and these could transform. Not really greatly, not really well. If you can see on the screen here, there's a little bit of glare there. Anyways, it's
Transformer.
It was a Transformer. You didn't have to disassemble it. It doesn't really look great in either mode, but they were trying. I think I would say probably the most successful one was Starscream. But that was something else that they did for Creos at the very tail end there.
They do exist. Creo Starscream.
I'm sure he's got. I think I've seen it at his house.
I have a feeling he's going to be bringing us something, and then or he just had to go.
But is it AFA graded? Is the question.
So is next up Construct Bots?
I think so.
Yeah, these are Construct Bots. They're kind of body horror at the end. Yeah, so this is Soundwave, quote unquote.
It's not terrible.
No, there's something. They're like, Christian and I were talking about it. They're kind of like, they wanted to do Transformers again. They wanted to build them, but they wanted to kind of be like, Bionicle a little bit. It's like, we'll have a Bionicle moment with our Construct Bots.
Yeah, they all kind of have a similar skeleton, and then you put these parts on top of it.
And if I remember right, part of the thing they advertised was how you could interchange the parts, but then they wouldn't transform anymore, so that doesn't make any sense.
Those were kind of cool. Like, I remember I got a lot of those, and there were some variants here and there. Like not, like production variants, like mistakes and stuff. So, like, you could actually really go down the rabbit hole with Construct Bots if you wanted. But
again, I wish Nick or Peter were here to see how far down the rabbit hole they went.
Right. I just remember, like, there were some differences, like the Starscream, like half of his face would be black versus gray sometimes, and like certain production runs had that. And I know that Soundwave had some of them had parts that were yellow and some didn't. I think they were gray instead of yellow, like, dumb shit like that. But I'm so glad, like, I kept, for some reason, I still have a lot of, next time I find these, I'm throwing them out. But I found those, like, they all come in like those plastic boxes, like little containers you could keep to put all the parts in. I kept those. Like, I have a stack of those somewhere in my garage or something.
You were supposed to keep them. They were made for keeping.
Yeah, it was something to keep, to put everything together. But, like,
right.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't like about build toys. I don't know. You always end up with some extra parts. It happened with Creo. It happens with every Lego set I've ever had. You get like one extra little brick. I don't know if it's like by design or what. But I think there was also extra parts with these Construct Bots as well.
Yep.
Like there would always be leftover. They get like an extra missile or a nub or something.
And I haven't seen the extra parts on this guy in ages. I also don't remember what this transforms into, so I have no idea what I'm doing right now.
Some sort of jet.
Yeah.
I think it's a disaster, but I can't remember what flavor of disaster.
Oh.
A jet-flavored disaster.
But yeah, we got a lot of G1 style toys with this. We got some Age of Extinction. We got some Transformers Prime. Like if you wanted Breakdown, you could get Breakdown in the US as a construct bot. That was the only way to get Transformers Prime Breakdown in the US for a long time was in a construct bot. Yeah, so not as successful as Creo in terms of how long the line lasted and how deep it went, but you got a good variety of characters out of those toy lines.
I just remember like there was always a dude at BotCon that had to like show off the construct bots. You know, like here's the new construct bot coming in a few years, and everyone's like, cool.
Yeah.
I want to do the interview with John Warden. Yeah. Not you, man.
Get to the good part.
Poor construct bot.
There's always construct bots for something. I was really excited for them until I got one. Then I wasn't excited anymore.
Yeah. I think I still have a couple of ones that I never put together.
There's always an ancillary Transformer line where they're like, try something, you know, do something else. And like we get construct bots, we get like a tactics, we get bot shots. Now we have bots. That's, you know, like bots is the construct bots.
I tell you, the bot shots and bots are both very fun little toy lines.
I'm not saying they aren't, but they are the give it your best college try toy line, you know. While this is coming out,
some of them pretty successful, and because you're going after beyond just the collector market. But us collectors are just like, cater just to us.
Oh yeah. I like that they take swings on stuff like that on this. That's what I'm looking back at this with you all. This is what I'm taking away from it. It's like, wow, I didn't see it at the time, but these were just like, hey, let's go for a different segment. Let's go for a different market segment with the thing that we have going really well right now. It's going so good that we can expand upon it and give things a shot. And I think they do it in a way that's like, it's taxing on the company in a different way than having to get transforming robots, you know? Like let's make this, let's use this skeleton of build of things to make Transformers now instead of something else. Like that's why all those construct bots look so similar, is because they went off a base and they were saying, how far can we push this without having to like redo everything.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clever and interesting. I don't know. I've never really known exactly what I was looking for with buildable Transformers. Like, what is it I actually want out of this? Because these transform, but they look kind of goofy. So I didn't like them that much. The ones you take apart, I really hate.
Well, I think I know the answer. And I think it's where we started. It's Diablock Convoy, but way better. Like, you know, years of practice upon the concept of Diablock Convoy, which is a transforming robot, but you build it and then you can mess with it.
I do think it'd be interesting to see a new take on it, especially if Lego did it, of, you know, like what they could actually do, you know?
Yeah, I think so too. It could end up being really good.
It could, but even Lego has limitations. You know, for my son that gets the Ninjago stuff, the mechs that he's built for the most part are really cool looking and really neat, but they've got a brand new one this year that I've seen in the stores and I've seen online. It's a combiner. It's one of the first times I've seen Lego do a combiner where you have like a drill tank that becomes the legs and a jet becomes the arms, and another smaller mech becomes the torso, and the combined version looks a little bit janky. It's Lego, so it's already not going to look that streamlined, but it looks even less streamlined than the older sets that he has like that. So I'm curious to see what an Optimus Prime would look like that has to do two things, look like a robot and look like a truck, and then three things because that's go between. And then adding the jet pack feature to it as well. It's like, that's how many parts is that going to take from this? So, as great as Lego is, it's you're never going to get a toy that's going to look exactly like a non-building toy would look like. Even different than a model kit. I mean, that's something we were kind of talking about before we came on, is the Flame Toys model kits. Like those look really, really nice in terms of something that you build and you get an articulated, a little bit fragile, but an articulated sort of model out of it. But at the same time, it doesn't have to do anything else. It just has to be built and then stand in the pose you put it in.
Yeah, and the model kits are...
Oh, sorry.
They're interesting because you're not building Transformers. You're building action figures. With the building kits, it's always been like, let's figure out how to let them build a Transformer. With this, it's just very much the quick concession of you're building an action figure instead. He's got his Bumblebee. I've got my BotCon exclusive, or not BotCon, but TFCon exclusive.
BotCon exclusive? Wow.
That's right. I made it my own. The TFCon custom panel figure, which I'm still salty about, but he exists. So hello.
Did you paint all those parts before you assembled them? Was that how they did it?
Yep.
Sweet.
It was, and I take a long time to put together model kits, so doing all that in an 8-hour period was not going to happen for me. So I painted, put it away, and went home. And built it when I got home and fixed the paint because the lighting was actually really, really bad in the custom room. So because I was painting navy blue on a black piece of plastic, the paint job was not so great.
You mean to tell me a hotel ballroom didn't have great lighting?
It did not. No.
God, who would have thunk?
It was something else. But those don't really satisfy the itch either, because you build it and it's an action figure and it is fragile, like Phil said. One thing about Lego is good Lego stuff isn't fragile. Like that Voltron, stuff does not pop off that Voltron while I'm playing with it.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
it stays
this guy,
together.
The Creo set here, it's like, oh, there goes a little thin sword spike thing. And I've had breakage with Creo parts over the years where parts will just break, which you don't get a ton of with Lego. You get a little bit of that here and there with Lego, but it doesn't break. With Creo, I've had far more breakage in Creo than I did with any Lego sets I've ever played with.
Me too. I had some breakage in Creo. Not a ton. It wasn't like a huge issue, but it was definitely something that happened.
It's not MP Hound level, fragile, but it's there.
Not everybody likes us picking on MP Hound.
I just thought I could have said gold plastic syndrome, but that was Hound popped into my mind first.
No, because he's recent, and he was a little disappointing just because he was so weak feeling.
It just popped in there.
So what? We've talked about what we expect. We've somewhat touched upon what we want out of this first figure. Do we think we'd want more? Do we think we want a whole line of Transformer Legos like they have for Star Wars or they have for Harry Potter and Marvel and DC and all that?
Oh, before we go down that road, can I just ask Paul, what do you think of the Xiaomi stuff?
it is the end game content of everything we've spoken of. From Diablock to Creo, from Diablock to Built-to-Rule to Creo. Then there's this Chinese company, Xiaomi, which is actually a cell phone company, built these crazy, like Lego Technic level sets, kind of, is how I could. It's not exactly that, but it's how I'd best describe them, with a bunch of those girder pieces with gears that connect to them, bars and connectors and Lego pieces together with a ton of those friction joint sort of things. And they're huge. They're huge. I mean, I'll show you one if you want.
Yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, none of us have them.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like with the Transformers, I'm not sure if it would be as successful for Lego, at least for me, as some of the other lines. And I think part of it is like Lego Harry Potter or some of the Lego vehicles for Star Wars. Like, I may not necessarily have an alternative. So it's like, if I want the Harry Potter castle, I'm probably going to get the Lego one, whereas Transformers, I've got 1,000 other options. So
that's a good point.
So this is Deluxe Class Cyberverse Optimus Prime, if you're familiar with this toy.
Mm-hmm.
The Xiaomi toys, I don't know if you remember the Neza toys. Cyberverse had a different, a alternative universe life in China. And so, this is about less than 5 inches tall, maybe. So this is the Xiaomi build version of Cyberverse Optimus Prime.
It is so big.
It's huge.
It is so big, and it is crazy. Look at this.
That is massive.
That took
as you see,
forever to build, didn't it?
It did. It took a bunch of time, and if you look at it closely, you can see all the. It has all those bricks that have the circles in it that you can pop the little. I don't even know what the T-bars or whatever you put in. It's more like a tech. I wouldn't say it's up to the par of Lego Technic sets, which I've seen before as I've grown up. They're crazy complicated, but this is close. This is a few thousand, at least 1,000 pieces to build this thing. And like Creo, you have to take it apart. Clearly, you have to take this thing apart to build the other version, and that is never ever happening.
So it can become a truck. It does have truck time.
Correct. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if they did or not.
Paul, is the head all one piece?
Yeah, the head is a special sculpt, and when you open the box, the head's in a special location. It's kind of this. This is kind of a cool. It's an experience to put this together. I'll tell you that. But the other thing is, it doesn't come with printed instructions, and you have to use this. You have to download a Chinese app that gives you a 3D model instruction set. Basically, it animates the next piece you can put, and you can spin it around in a 3D, which is very cool, but sucks ass for probably any minute now. That's going to be obsolete, and you can't build this anymore. And there's no printed instructions. There's no such thing. So that's what's so bizarre about these. So what you have to do is
a few, right?
Yeah, there's Megatron, Bumblebee, and these are all Cyberverse. The Megatron, Bumblebee, and Starscream.
There's Windblade too.
Is there?
Now, are those licensed?
I want the Windblade because it made a good
no?
Cyberverse Windblade.
Oh yeah, these are legit. These are sanctioned. These are Transformers. Through and through. This is not a bootleg by any means. You have to get these through I think you can get them on Taobao. But they're in China. You have to get them in China. They're crazy. So yeah, I'd say this is the culmination of all the previous things that we have talked about, and it has, for as big as it is, it's just those little friction ball joints holding all this stuff together in certain spots, which is just so bizarre.
Like, nothing doesn't transform, or it doesn't really transform, but like I don't care. Like, building that one time, that is a really neat looking Optimus, right? You finish that, you're like, ooh, that's pretty. I built it. I'm done. It's okay that it doesn't transform.
Yeah, and you don't really want it to. It's got presence on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, do you know if the other ones are that size too, or that scale, or are they a little bit smaller? The pictures I've seen, they look smaller.
I think they're smaller. I think they just went, they made Cyberverse Optimus, Optimus Prime's the big one. It's the one people are willing to pay more money for, whatever. So I think the rest of them are maybe about half this size. I don't think even Megatron compares to this. But I just got this. I just ordered the Starscream recently, so I'll have to remember how I downloaded that app. I think I had an emulator on my computer for Windows in order to do that, and then told it I was in China somehow. And
wow,
I think you did.
It was not easy.
Wow.
It was a real pain in the ass. But just show. This is a modern Transformer Lego thing. I do not expect a brick building thing. I do not expect the new Lego Optimus to start here.
No,
so
I'm expecting it to look more like the Voltron.
Yeah, that's kind of where we were going next. Was like, what? So now we've talked about all this. We've gone down memory lane. What is coming? If this is real, right? Like, what do we think?
I mean, I think we'll get a one and done to start. I don't think we'd get a full wave like we were just talking about, or our full, like shelf presence of Lego's Transformers. I could be wrong. Lego is doing a lot of these higher end sort of builds these days, because especially during the pandemic, there were a lot of folks who had time to kill, and they were making puzzles, they were doing all sorts of stuff, and Lego was a big thing that they got into. So I think Lego is really trying to give the older fan base different fun things to build, and especially things that are different popular intellectual properties, and Transformers certainly scratches that itch. Certainly anything that is Transformers and Lego, not all the Transformers fans might buy it, and not all the Lego folks would buy it, but there's going to be enough of both groups, and plus I'm sure plenty of folks who don't buy either of those normally who would probably want to go and scoop it up if it looks halfway decent.
So in this day and age, in 2022, what is more ubiquitous, G1 Optimus Prime or the movie? Like, what if you have to make that choice and you only get to make one? You don't get to be like, well, why not both? Like, what do you do?
I will be shocked if it's not at least a little bit of a nod or tie-in to the new movie coming. Like, I would be shocked if this released in May and wasn't based on the Beasttown USA or whatever it's called movie design of Optimus. That's what it's got to be, right?
We don't know that Beasttown Optimus might be more a G1-ish version. I mean, the Bumblebee movie Optimus kind of was.
But if it has this jet-fired jetpack thing, like some of the description says, that's a very, early Michael Bay sort of design that it would come with.
They can do it again. Have a rip apart air razor. Stick out his orbits. Be great.
I mean, I think no matter what they do, if it's successful, you'll get another version of it.
I'm not sorry, Paul.
Don't be.
Very proud.
I wanna go to the Beasttown USA movie with Guy Fieri doing a cameo.
That'd be a great crossover.
I had Guy Fieri food for lunch today.
Guy Fieri X Transformers. I would be all over that.
They just a transformer with his crazy hair. It turns into a food truck, and like just the head sculpt on that would be fun.
I would love that.
Phil.
Yeah.
Our new crossover right there. I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he turns into
The food truck is great.
Yeah, it's mud flap and skids. It's an ice cream truck.
I really want a food truck transformer now, and I do want it to be Guy Fieri.
Yeah, I think you're right, Anna. I think it will probably be. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be like maybe it'll be somewhat like the Creo stuff, where it was sort of it's not this, it's not that, it's like its own thing, but everyone is kind of happy, sort of, because it's enough of each. If it's anything like the leaks I've seen of what Optimus looks like in the movie, it would make sense. Like, because it is pretty, that's closer to G1 now. But if it has a backpack, like, is that a spoiler for the movie? Or is that just like, hey, that's now an evergreen thing. We want to just make the trailer turn into something. Like, I don't know.
That would be fine. Like, if they just did it that way, where it's like, it's Jetwing because it's Jetwing.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just because he is. Who cares why?
I think this is a pilot project, essentially. But I think there is the intention and the expectation on both companies' behalfs is to make this a 10-year brand or something like that.
Like I said, when you look at the marriage of Lego and Hasbro, like I can't imagine that wouldn't have gotten a ton of press at Toy Fair.
Yeah.
Well, they also might just be testing it out. Like it has to, it may have to sell out by a certain date to be like, okay, there's enough heat here to like, we can do a second one at some point.
Yeah.
Like it's probably an experiment that both companies are willing to do just to see if there's anything there. And if there isn't, they're like, well, that was fun. Let's go on to we're moving on to the next thing.
And Lego does that a lot where they'll test the waters with these like fan design sets where, all right, I'm sure if the Sonic set does well, we might get another. I mean, they did the Friends, coffee shop, and then we got a Friends apartment. We got Seinfeld. So they've expanded when something does well. They only did one Sesame Street. You got a lot of the Sesame Street characters with that, but they only did one Sesame Street. So that maybe did not do as well for them.
Well, remember, Cookie Monster did not fund.
True. Sesame Street fans don't have deep pockets. Those 3-year-olds, they don't got the cash.
Yeah, I have a decent amount of hope for this whole thing, though, because I think that, if you combine the quality level of Lego with the creativity of, fan designers and their designers, I think they'll be able to make something pretty cool that won't be a disappointment. It's just like, I think I never saw anyone complain about the way the Voltron looked. There's a lot of people still out there really wanting that, like, Voltron toy that really is their last Voltron toy. But no one complained when the Lego one was silly looking. It was just like, wow, that's cool. All right. It's fun. So I'm hoping for something like that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to transform. I only want to have to build it once.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's the promise, I think, of a Lego funded piece.
I think so.
I mean, if you look at what was coming out from Lego at the same time Creo was coming out, the Lego engineers are far and above better at that sort of thing than what Hasbro's Creo team was able to do. The G.I. Joe stuff was better than the Transformer stuff because, again, like Built to Rule, the G.I. Joe stuff didn't have to transform. But, yeah, from a lot of different angles, it was, you had better sets coming out of Lego at all times.
And Mega Bloks / Mega Constructs, they've been solid for a long time. Like, they do good stuff. It's just not as good as Lego. They get a lot of the big licenses. They had Ninja Turtles forever.
Game of Thrones?
For some reason, they have Game of Thrones. Halo.
I know people who bought it. It's one of those things that, again, why is Lego making a Carnage head sculpt? Because there's a fan base who wants it.
Those are odd looking.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Lego heads.
Yeah, those are a little weird to me too. So I don't know. I mean, I do think it would be neat to actually see an ongoing line between Lego and Transformers. I think it could definitely work if the companies are willing to work together.
So last kind of like thing I want to say about why I think this could be okay is I have a friend who's really into Lego. Like, he's as into Lego as I am Transformers, and he's covering his house in Lego, and that's great because he wasn't a collector back in the day. It's brought us closer, blah, blah, blah. But he was really excited when the whole Optimus link came out, and I was like, yeah, but I know people have been making all these cool Transformers ideas for years, but I don't want to buy all the parts. It's a pain in the ass, blah, blah, blah. So I'm never going to do it. And he told me that there's this site, Rebrickable, where people make their own, Lego designs. But what they do is they make Lego designs for these sets, these like 3-in-1 creator sets that are like $12 on Amazon. They make their own designs for them and they post them online. And there's this guy who makes a bunch of Transformers designs. And he made this cool little transforming telescope out of that set and put it up. And it legit looks like, it's Perceptor. Essentially, it's yellow Perceptor. And it legit transforms. And it's a little unstable and everything, but I mean, it's a fan-made thing made out of an existing set. So if a fan who's very talented can make this, I think Lego can make something fantastic with their no limitations, and they can make it as expensive as they want because we're all idiots who will pay for it.
Yep.
That's one thing Lego fans, Transformers fans have in common. We will pay.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
Yeah, did we really talk about the fan-made versions? Because there's been some real winners over the years that have just blown me away. I can't remember any of them, but every once in a while there's just an incredible Lego build Transformer, and you're like, God, I wish that was real.
There's a book at our library that's about like how to make Transformers from Legos. My son checks it out maybe every 6 months. He never builds from it because I don't think he has the parts that he would need to, or at least isn't organized. But they look good. They look good in this like unofficial book that's probably like 3 or 4 years old at this point. There's a lot of creative folks out there in the Lego world. That's the big difference between the Transformer fandom. One of the big differences between the Lego fandom and Transformers fandom is like the Transformers fandom. We can draw up our own things and write up fan fiction all we want, but like Lego fans are like, yeah, I'm gonna build it. I'm just gonna make it myself.
Well, I mean, there's the whole customizer.
Yeah, you're right, but it's not to the level that what you can do with Lego.
Lego as a toy and as an activity breeds creativity. Yes. It encourages it.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you though, Phil. I know what you're getting at, and yes, I
think the percentage of Lego fans who go and just build their own thing is far greater than the percentage of Transformers fans that are getting customization.
The average Lego fan tries to build their own thing every once in a while. The average Transformer fan buys 50,000 repaints of the same thing because they needed it to be just a little more orange.
And then they digibash the way they wish it really looked.
Yes.
Posted on Twitter.
And they freaking buy another gosh darn cup because his windows are blue now instead of clear.
Yeah.
I'm convinced we're going to get another Perceptor after seeing the in-hand pictures today of Studio Series Perceptor.
I'm sure that's probably their idea on all of that.
He's got too many molded details that aren't painted for them to just be leaving it like that. Paul, is that bigger than your daughter?
Yeah, for the toy sleuth over here. No. I don't think so at this point. I think
She has surpassed it.
she's bigger, yes.
Yeah.
It used to be bigger than her, though,
Yes. Those were good days.
because she's newer than it, I think.
Right. This is definitely older than her.
How much does that thing weigh?
It's heavy. Well, this is one of those things where you're like, how do I pick this up without it falling apart, you know?
Does it fall apart?
I mean, it's all friction. You know, if you
Okay. So it does fall
grab the
apart.
wrong part, you know, it would be heavier than those little those Lego nubs, you know, the little hollow tubes that hold it together with the little edges on the end. You know, like at some point, those don't stay. But in general, it's meant to be just like sort of a stand here and display piece. Although it is articulated. It can do all sorts of things, but I don't want to stress the joints too much. I'm just going to have it standing here.
That's why I think we're going to get a really blocky Optimus. I think he's going to be really blocky and bricky like the Voltron is, and not skinny and agile like this little guy. Because, you know, this guy can pose a lot, and it's really neat, but it falls apart all the time as I'm playing with it.
Yeah, because even the lion that's based off of Anna looks like a pretty anorexic lion.
Yeah, it does. It's a lion that's very hungry. It needs to go eat that bird. It's got a bird it's chasing. It wants to eat it.
I mean, I hope that this takes off, because I know whatever this first toy is will not be what the 20th toy is. The 20th toy will have, 2 years of making these under its belt, and it's like, oh, this doesn't work, but this does. Let's do this more often. And the next Optimus they release will be awesome. It's just like always look at the Masterpiece line, MP01, MP10, MP44. Like, holy cow, those are paradigms apart from each other. That just takes time and experience.
The small Xiaomi guys do not look nearly as amazing as that, by the way. I've been looking at pictures. They look a lot more like Creo.
Well, I'll let you know.
They're better than Creo, but they are, again, kind of that skinny emaciated, almost like your bot there, Anna. Yeah.
Yeah.
They went more with accentuating the articulation.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to Zaldron. Thanks to John. Thanks to Catherine. Thanks to Ron. Book club this week is going to be Revolutionaries 1 and 2. So join them on Sunday night at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central on the TF Talk Discord.
Join us and be like one of the few people who don't complain about having to read Revolutionaries. We're all salty about it. It's fun.
Is that the one with Skywarp?
I think so. I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
I'm supposed to read issues 1 and 2.
Get reading.
I will.
But yeah, and then Microcasters this week, I think it'll be another grab bag. Is that right? I think that's what we're going to do.
Probably. I don't know what we all have.
Sorry, I didn't.
You don't have a knockout. Otherwise, we'd have it.
Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry for not making the Minibot Madness last week. I was a little disappointed to show off mine. So, oh well. Anyway, but there was also Cut the Tape last week, too, if you want to check that out. So, all right. Well, thanks, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.